Good morning. Good morning. This is Monty once again from DPL Surveillance Equipment. Wiping down my car. It's a very nice day out here in Camarillo, California. It's too bad that the people in South Carolina and North Carolina and Georgia area are experiencing the issues with the Hurricane Florence. My heart goes out to those people, definitely. Looks like it's going to be a tough time for a lot of those people. Well, I guess the good news is the hurricane status has been reduced from like 4 to category 2, and I think that should at least alleviate some of the damage that results from weather or wind-driven events as compared to the flood-related damage that you get after the storm. So looks like they're just going to have to deal with maybe just flooding as compared to wind damage and flooding. So that may be, I don't know if that's any consolation, but that may make it easier, a little bit easier to recover and recuperate from what's going on there. Let's see, what else is going on in the world? Looked like the emerging markets took a big hit as a result of Donald Trump's tariffs imposed on a number of different countries, and also the raising of rates here in the United States doesn't seem to be helping the emerging markets at all. Turkey is going to have, I don't know, over 20%, I think, interest rates or something like that. A number of other countries, African countries particularly, are taking a hit. But emerging markets, unfortunately, are very vulnerable because a lot of their economic activity, borrowing, etc., is denominated in dollars. So whenever you have a major amount of your economic activity, especially your borrowing, denominated in dollars, it becomes very, very expensive for you just to do business when the Fed here, for instance, the United States starts raising those rates. So that's a major issue for those emerging markets. It's too bad because I think they'll learn eventually if they could adopt Bitcoin. They can continue doing business as usual without so much worrying about sanctions or the raising of rates here in the United States, because we have our own economic issues in the United States, and until they're resolved, unfortunately, we have to look out for ourselves, right? So this government here in the United States is definitely not doing those countries any favors by hedging or linking everything together the way they are. So anyway, a lot of people are struggling, a lot of people are hurting unnecessarily, in my opinion. So you guys you guys who are responsible for the economies in emerging markets, you better consider whether or not cryptocurrencies are going to be an alternative, a viable alternative going forward, so you don't have to worry about these fiascos like what's happening here. I think a small island in the Marshall Islands got fed up with the issues revolving around banking and getting access to the banking network, which is, again, dominated by United States banks and such. So they started to take a look at cryptocurrencies, definitely. And it looks like the IMF has its feathers all ruffled because Marshall Islands dared to not participate or not suffer any longer under the foot of oppressive financial regimes in the United States. So they're looking at cryptocurrencies, definitely. And it looks like they could very soon have their own crypto offering for their citizens and their economic well-being. So that may be the way to go. That may be the trend in the future. So you guys keep your eyes and ears open. We'll see whether or not Bitcoin actually prevents a viable alternative, starting with some of these smaller countries first, and then, of course, spreading about. Now, who am I? My name is Monty Henry, owner of DPL Surveillance Equipment. I run a full-service surveillance and security equipment company. We have lifetime guarantees and warranties on all of the products, 24/7, 365 tech sales and customer support. We have the largest inventory of items that not only can you buy, but you can rent or lay away as well. And very huge and growing articles directory, very huge and growing media center overall. The demonstration videos, the podcasts, the blogs, and such are definitely growing in size and variety. So go there and take a look at what we have to offer and see for yourself whether or not there's anything to read about, listen to, watch in the way of the demonstration videos. And because we're covering everything, we're covering cryptocurrencies, we're covering health and fitness, we're covering economics and finance, we're covering surveillance and counter-surveillance, we're covering, what else? Cybersecurity. Just a huge growing number of topics, basically. So, and then we also accept Bitcoin, by the way. We accept Bitcoin and Litecoin and Ethereum and Bcash. So go there and take a look at it and see what you think. And if you have any preferences as far as things that you want to look at or listen to, or any coins that you want us to accept, let us know, okay? We need to get away from the Visas, get away from the MasterCards, get away from the oppressive financial regime known as the central banking system, known as the Federal Reserve, and get your financial sovereignty, which means you control your money by way of controlling your private keys. When you get your treasure wallet or your nano ledger wallet, you hold the private keys. No one is responsible for keeping your money any longer. You don't have to go to a bank. You don't have to have an account that's approved of or not approved of by some financial institution. Those days are long gone. So, again, take back your financial sovereignty, take control of your finances, and establish your own independence, okay? Now, the website is redesigned, by the way. For those of you who remember the old design, sorry for the noise here. A lot of people coming and going to work and whatever. But, the website is completely redesigned, completely revamped. So go there and take a look around and let me know what you think. Lots of new products. Even I put the used products on the website. The used products are basically, sorry about that. The used products are basically the formerly rentals. So when you rent a product, we can't put it back into the inventory as new. So you can actually save money by purchasing those used products, formerly rented products. Now, we can get into the topic for today. I think the topic for today is what? The government may want to buy your dying mall. Again, the government may want to buy your dying mall. Now, what's going on there is very simple. I'll frame it first and put it in the proper context, and then we'll take a look at the details. We have a lot of malls in the United States, a lot of shopping malls, and a lot of consumers were patronizing these shopping malls. And the developers and the banks, the people whose jobs it is to determine whether or not the demographics are such that they can support these malls, I think they got a little bit ahead of themselves. They probably built more malls than they should have. But at the same time, when you have a growing economy, or like Trump likes to say, when you have a booming economy, you really should expect more out of consumers as far as activity, right? If they have the money, they have the jobs, they have the wages, then more of these stores, you should be able to support them, right? When Kmart goes out of business and JCPenney is on the chopping block and Sears is struggling, that doesn't bode very well for a huge consumer base of people who actually have money. It looks like you got a lot of people who actually don't have money, in my opinion, that they can't support those low-end stores, let alone the high-end stores. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the specifics. Local governments worry that dying malls will blight the landscape, so they are buying them up. Local governments across the United States are taking over dying shopping malls. These municipalities, concerned that vacated retail centers will blight the landscape and drag down surrounding property values, have been buying up malls they fear are being starved of capital by the private sector. Governments often rely on land banks to fund the purchases. Let's see. These government-backed or quasi-public entities are usually used to acquire derelict homes and lots through tax foreclosures when it is clear that no private investment is forthcoming. As we recovered from the recession, the market has reabsorbed some properties, but not in the smaller communities that never recovered. Let's see. Said Frank Alexander, co-founder and senior advisor of the Center for Community Progress, which promotes land banks. In those places, we're getting more questions about how to deal with abandoned shopping centers, diverging fortunes. Malls in affluent areas have fewer vacancies than those in lower income areas. So as you would guess, the higher end individuals in your affluent areas, the Beverly Hills, I don't know what you call it, I don't know what you guys have in your particular states as far as affluent areas, you know what they are. But in California, you know, we got the Brentwoods, and then we got the Beverly Hills areas, we got the Malibu areas and such. It's not an issue in those areas supporting these malls. But when you get into some of the outlying areas, the suburbs and such, I think that's where you see more of an issue, with people not being able to support those malls and patronize those stores and keep those sales up, and thus keep the malls open for business. Let's see. Real estate analysts say that tabulating the number of takeovers is difficult, in part because government buyers aren't always easily identifiable. Yet a number of analysts believe this is a small but growing trend in cities with failing malls. In May, for example, the Clark County Land Utilization Corporation purchased Upper Valley Mall in Springfield, Ohio for $3 million. Nothing was being done in our opinion, said Thomas Hill, executive director at the Clark County Land Bank. This is just one project we felt we had to protect. JCPenney Company, Macy's Incorporated, closed their Upper Valley stores in 2015, but other malls, but other mall staples, including Sears Holdings Corporation, Foot Locker, still operate. Mr. Hill said he is in talks with potential investors to redevelop the property into a mixed-use site that could include housing, a soccer field, and a smaller retail presence. In other instances where governments opt to get rid of retail entirely. The city of Memphis purchased Raleigh Springs Mall and demolished it last year to build a new community center the $28 million Raleigh Town Center, which will have a library. It'll have a library, police and traffic precinct, an 11-acre lake, and a skate park. It's slated to be completed June 2019, while malls in wealthy neighborhoods continue to while malls and wealthy neighborhoods continue to attract shoppers and tenants, growing government involvement with shopping centers in less affluent areas is another sign that private investors may be losing interest in the worst performing malls, even ones that can be had at cheap prices. So this is really indicative of a situation where investors and these quasi-government entities known as the land banks are able to pick and choose, unfortunately, amongst the dying malls, like vultures picking on, the carcass of some animal that just died, because of the pitiful economic state that we're in. Again, when people don't have the income to patronize these stores, and once upon a time, the United States had a huge and growing, thriving middle-class sector, and you could afford to shop at JCPenney's, you could afford to shop at Macy's and Bloomingdale's, and you could afford to shop at various stores and support those stores, right? I mean, that's what the United States is known for, people who are willing and able to spend. But unfortunately, again, we find that when things slow down, people start cutting back, and the amount of patronage that you get going into these malls and even standalone stores start to drop off dramatically. And this is what you get, malls that are taken over by government / private industry investors, and they get a chance to pick and choose what they want to redevelop and save, and as compared to things that aren't worth saving. So, excuse the noise. Pretty pathetic state, economic state, if you ask me. Let's see, moving right along. It's a new issue, said Thomas Dabrowski, Executive Managing Director of Capital Markets at real estate services firm Newmark Knight Frank. When a mall gets to a point of no return, and when no private buyer is willing to reinvest in it, it comes down to the value of the dirt. Still, government takeovers face many challenges. Malls and department stores often have large, unwieldy footprints, making it tougher to propose another use for them. For big boxes in particular, there are limited uses of that space, says Michelle Wildman, Executive Director at Genesee County Land Bank. The Genesee County Land Bank in Flint, Michigan, currently has a list of 58 commercial properties for sale, including a 101,900 square feet former Kmart store, but the lack of windows and the large floor plate makes it difficult for such properties to be converted into other uses, such as housing. Plans to reposition malls can also get bogged down if city council members and residents don't agree to propose new uses. Some could also be raised when structures are found to be unsound. It could also be complex and time-consuming to buy back malls if multiple parties own different portions of the real estate. But various obstacles haven't stopped some municipalities from trying. In North St. Louis County in Missouri, a local economic development board last year filed a condemnation petition saying that Jamestown Mall, a 1.2 million square foot property, poses a health hazard after regular break-ins and other problems. On at least one occasion, an individual drove into a sinkhole at the site, parking area and needs to be rescued, according to the lawsuit. So, dilapidated malls are indeed a problem. and when people get to the point where they can literally drive into a sinkhole because no one is maintaining or even securing these places so that, the public doesn't just wander in there and drive into sinkholes, that kind of tells you, these are definitely economic blights that somebody should be looking at. Moving right along. The petition sped up negotiations for a deal between the remaining owner and the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, which had been acquiring pieces of the mall since 2015. The development board bought the final piece eventually. It is now in talks with a developer who has plans to demolish the current building and develop a logistics center there. I'm hoping we can move it along for the community, said Sheila Sweeney, Chief Executive Officer at St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. People really want something to happen, but right now it's sitting there decaying. That's it for that particular article and podcast. Just want to illustrate it again, you guys. I had read just a couple of years earlier that the total number of commercial property coming back onto the market, including shopping malls, exceeded 1 billion square feet. That kind of tells you things are going to get a lot worse before they get a lot better, because there's a total lack of demand for all these commercial facilities, whether they're malls, office spaces, industrial parks, etc., etc. When things slow down dramatically the way they have been, this is what happens. The banks and the developers got together and they overbuilt and they oversupplied based upon what they thought was going to be economy that continued to grow, continued to boom, or whatever. And I think as Obama left office, and it's now as Donald Trump comes into office, we're going to have to deal with this situation where there's just no reason to continue building and thinking that there's any boom going on. There is no boom going on right now, as indicated by articles like this one. Every once in a while, you get a glimmer of hope, but overall, you better not be loaning a lot of your hard-earned money for development in an environment where banks and such are actually abandoning properties. Developers are walking away from properties, and government agencies have to kick in with taxpayer dollars, backed by hopefully some private industry monies to rescue some of these properties. But not all of them can be rescued or going to be rescued. So anyway, we just want to throw that out there. I'll put the article on the website along with the podcast and any other resources that I can find to help drive the point. So anyway, you guys, as I like to say at the conclusion of every podcast, keep your eyes and ears open and stay safe out there. Have a good day. Thanks. Take care. Bye.